A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Diamonds are forever.
Shine bright like a diamond.
Society's obsession with diamonds is almost unlike anything else. A symbol of the epitome of wealth. Diamond-encrusted jewelry and clothing, diamonds are a girl's best friend, diamonds are forever. The obsession with them in media, songs and everyday life is amazing. If you want to show just how much money you have, you put diamonds on it, which is surprising, especially considering the fact that they're almost worthless. Yes, they look nice and shiny in the light, and they have industrial uses that almost nothing else can quite match, but at the end of the day, they're really just clear rocks. Now, when diamonds were being mined back in the early 1900s, the largest diamond mining country in the world was South Africa, and it was all under the control of Robert Oppenheimer, the owner of De Beers. His monopoly was so powerful, in fact, that at least 90% of diamonds being mined at the time were being mined by this one man and his company. There was just one issue with all of this, which I'll say again, diamonds aren't rare. During the monopoly of Mr. Oppenheimer, diamonds were only being mined in 2 other countries, Brazil and India, which led people to believe that these were incredibly scarce assets, and that, along with their flashy looks, meant the rich couldn't get enough of them. But once people started to discover diamond mines all across Africa, and Oppenheimer's mines were mining more and more diamonds by the day, the scarcity of these rocks started to dip quite a bit. The De Beers mines in South Africa were pulling out so many diamonds that if they were to sell everything they mined, they would likely crash their own market and put themselves out of business. So De Beers and Oppenheimer had to think of a solution. So like every other great monopoly in history, they did what they do best, rig the market. So instead of providing the customers with what they want, which is more diamonds, they slowed down mining as much as possible and raised prices to make them seem as scarce and desirable as they could. And the people fell for it. The De Beers diamond monopoly was in fact so good at doing this and covering it all up that they just might be the most successful monopoly and cartel to have ever existed. And here's how they did it. Now, diamonds can exist anywhere that there is carbon, which just so happens to be pretty much everywhere on this planet. So how do you make the same carbon you chuck on fires in the form of coal into something worth thousands of times the price? It's a combination of marketing and ruthless cartel tactics. Now, a cartel is typically used to describe criminal gangs. In reality, a cartel is just a group of people that have come together in a particular market to work together to fix prices. Now, does that mean that the diamond cartels are different from the murderous drug cartels? Not really. The only difference is the diamond cartels sell something that's legal. But how did De Beers convince the other diamond miners to join this cartel? They simply bought up the other new mines that had been popping up all across Africa, and if people didn't want to sell, then they wouldn't be afraid to use other tactics as well. Now, initially you start with a smear campaign, claiming that basically everyone who wasn't you was a black market dealer, selling diamonds illegally or using inhumane ways to get them. Not that you weren't using the same inhumane mining operations, you just hid them better. But if the smear campaign didn't work, you might have to get a bit more physical. More specifically, you would hire someone else to get more physical with the competition, with one man claiming to be a former De Beers private investigator, stating that he would kidnap and torture some of the competition for information, all to help convince and persuade them to see your way of thinking and operating. So now that the competition is no longer your competition and have been convinced to join you, you've now got a solid monopoly in place to control the production of diamond mining and selling across the world. This is where you can begin to fix prices and manipulate the market to maintain this aura of scarcity around diamonds. Now, whilst you're not able to be the only person selling diamonds to the general public, as that would make your monopoly a little too obvious, you let the diamond sellers stick around in the market. But in reality, they're a part of your operation anyway. Because you own all the mines, the only person they can get their diamonds from is you. So you tell them how many they're going to sell and at what price. And if they don't follow your orders, you simply either cut their allowance or give them diamonds of lesser quality, until they realize the error of their ways and fall back into line. De Beers created a perfect chain of command, with them at the top, their selected distributors underneath, who they called their site holders, and the general public underneath them. Now, De Beers weren't allowed to operate in the US, but their site holders were. So they opened their offices in London and ordered their site holders to visit them every 5 weeks to make their supplier requests for what diamonds they wanted to sell, based on what their customers had been ordering. This allowed De Beers all the information on the market, so they could provide less of the high demand diamonds to the distributors to maintain their scarcity. All of this resulting in massive profits in the diamond industry that had never been seen before. Now, although your business was making the equivalent of billions in today's money, you were still missing out on the biggest market in the world at the time, America, because as I mentioned earlier, De Beers weren't allowed to set up a store in the US directly, so they had to rely on their distributors on the other side of the pond. Combining their indirect presence in the American market, along with the fact that Americans just didn't seem to care too much about diamonds in the first place, meant that De Beers' profits, although extremely high, weren't being maximised and living up to their full potential. If they could find a way to tap into this underutilised market, it could multiply the profits they make to a massive scale. So Oppenheimer and De Beers went on a marketing masterclass and began to tie diamonds not just to a show of wealth and extravagance, but as a show of love, caring and commitment. If you bought a diamond for someone, it's because you loved them more than anything else in the entire world. If you didn't buy them one, then you just didn't care. De Beers set up another distributor in America, but this time in Hollywood, and they gave some of their biggest and best looking diamond jewelry to producers, on the condition that they would show them in favourable positions in their films, such as being worn by the main actors or having their characters propose with a diamond ring. The actors would even be given diamond jewelry as well to wear whilst they were out, to continue the promotion off screen. It's a practice we still see today where celebrities are given free clothes worth thousands of dollars to wear at red carpet events to promote the brand. Once people saw their idols on TV and in cinemas covering themselves in diamonds and confessing their love with them, they were sold, and it was as easy as that, resulting in De Beers making more money than they could ever dream of, completely capturing the last major market that wasn't under their control. But this brought up another small problem. Because they were now filling the market and Americans were buying more diamonds than ever before, if they started to resell their jewelry, it would put this new supply back onto the market and crash the price, because people would quickly realize the truth about diamonds. They're still pretty much worthless, no matter how much you advertise them. But once again, De Beers had a solution to this problem and came up with another plan to stop people reselling them, with their Diamonds Are Forever campaign. You don't buy a diamond for a year, you buy it for life. Once people are sold on the idea of keeping them forever, you no longer have to worry about this massive supply of diamonds you've sold hitting the open market again. And it worked. For every milestone in your relationship, whether it's a proposal, 5 years of marriage, 10 years of marriage, it doesn't matter. You buy a new diamond ring or piece of diamond jewelry. You don't trade in the old one and get something better. No, you keep your metal circle with a clear rock on it and you get another one, this time with a bigger rock. And each one has to be worth at least a couple months' salary to show you really love your partner by working away for a quarter of the year to buy something that would resell for maybe a tenth of the price if you're lucky. But as long as you never try to resell it, you won't know that it's worth next to nothing. So it's not a problem. Now just about every aspect of the market was covered, from mining to selling and finally reselling. The people were convinced to buy your diamonds again and again and keep them forever, meaning you almost never ran out of customers, because the same ones would keep coming back forever, or at least as long as their relationships last. But that's fine, because as soon as they got into a new relationship, the cycle of buying diamonds for their partners would start all over again. There would still be a few problems for De Beers in the years to follow, because diamonds can still be found just about anywhere in the world, just like they would be found in Siberia in the 50s and Australia in the 70s. The Siberian mines weren't too much of an issue though. The Soviet Union at the time were more than happy to accept some backhand dealings to give the diamonds to De Beers or just shut down entirely. However, Australia would prove a little bit more difficult to coerce, but not impossible, thanks to them operating in a democratic and open country. So after a few short years of lobbying, funding a few politicians and more under-the-table deals, they eventually brought Australia under control and were even kind enough to give them a special style of diamond that nobody else had. Unfortunately for De Beers, however, this monopoly wouldn't last forever. Over time, more diamond mines would pop up in multiple countries and De Beers wouldn't be able to bring them all under control in such quick succession. And after a while, Russia, the former Soviet Union, and Australia, along with other countries, would grow tired of the manipulation. So they eventually shrugged off all further attempts at making deals and brought the control back to themselves. Combine this with the creation of lab-made diamonds, which have grown in popularity due to the fact that they're sold cheaper and are pretty much impossible to differentiate between natural diamonds, and that they also don't involve the high likelihood of slaves mining them, another factor which helped in the downfall of De Beers' mining operations, and you can see how the tight grasp they once had on the market began to wither away. De Beers eventually had to settle down the monopoly and cartel they'd been running and begin setting up their own storefronts. Still making plenty of money, but nothing close to what they had been earning in the past. Even though De Beers don't run the diamond market quite like they used to, them, along with every other diamond miner and seller, are still able to profit off of all the hard work they put in all those years ago. with people still believing in their worth and value, creating this endless stream of repeat customers that just keep coming back again and again to show their love to their partners, even if, once again, those diamonds are basically still worthless.